Good morning. Howdy. This is Mackenzie Franklin from SideGame LLC here in Colorado Springs, Colorado. And today joined by my very awesome, esteemed co-host. Go for it, Dan.
Yeah, I'm Dan, also known as the chairman of the board. Should know me by now, hopefully. But yeah, glad to be here for another episode of Corporate Cardboard.
Fantastic. Yes, so let's go ahead and we're going to jump right into it. Dan, how you doing this morning?
Yeah, very good, thank you. Yeah, nice day here in sunny England for a change. But yeah, good to get around to another episode.
Let's do it. And let's go ahead and jump in with the games we've been playing. So Dan, let me hear all about your first game.
Okay, so the first game I'm going to talk about is actually a game I played last night, which has just recently been fulfilled on Kickstarter. This is a re-implementation of a Martin Wallace classic called Tinner's Trail. So Tinner's Trail is, as you'd probably expect with a lot of Martin Wallace games, this has a real industrious, economic style feel to it. This one is actually set in Cornwall in England. And the idea is that we are trying to invest in these mines, and then we are trying to extract all the different metals from those mines, being careful not to extract it when there's too much water in those mines, because when you do so, it's going to be a lot more expensive depending on how much water is in there. So you want to get rid of that water and extract it when it's most profitable to sell it for the most profit at the end of the round. To be honest, I'll just come out with it. This game blew me away. I loved this game. It was so good. I wasn't expecting it to be half as good as what it was, because I know it's not regarded as one of Wallace's best games. But I don't know why. I thought this game has everything in this game is wonderful. It has a brilliant time track system where certain actions cost more time, meaning that the people furthest behind on the time track keep going until they catch up, which is a mechanism I love. It has a great kind of commodity speculation, as the value of these metals is fluctuating from round to round. So you want to sell it when it's highest. And I love the scoring system in this game, because the quicker you are to pass means that you get a lot better scoring conversion, where you're converting your money into points. But you want to keep holding your money, because money is what you're going to need to extract the minerals in the first place, and what you're actually going to need to buy the new mines from. And yeah, I honestly, there was nothing about this game that I didn't like. It was fantastic.
Wow, this sounds fantastic. I'm glad that you like this. I know that you've recently really dived into kind of these classic Martin Wallace games. So yeah, I'm glad they're blowing you away. That's really good praise from you, because I know you're esteemed Euro lovers. This is great news. What was the biggest like standout component or mechanism or just thing in the game for you?
It was a tough one, actually, because I've literally just finished recording this one, actually. And I love the scoring. The scoring is so great, because you are, again, incentivized to pass early, which means you're giving up more actions, essentially. And the earlier you are, you can get a better ratio. But also, you're incentivized to sell your money for points earlier, because in the later rounds, they also diminish in value. So it's got this real tension of, do I sell now? Do I keep hold of my money? Is now the best time to do things? It's just so well put together. And yeah, that was probably the slightest thing that I like the most. But that water system as well is fantastic.
I like the tension of things like that, where you are foregoing the ability to, take actions or build engines and whatever to take that scoring bump. So that's fantastic.
Yeah, highly recommend it. If I know you like some Wallace games, so Brass, for example, you actually recommended that to me. This one has a certain vibe that's almost similar to Brass. Not a very different game, but I think you'd like it.
Perfect. I will take a look, because once again, this was one that I was very much on the fence about. Most Wallace games I know are hit or miss for people, so this is one I'll have to take a look at. Sweet. Thanks so much, Dan. Let's go ahead and jump to my first game that I've been playing. And this is a big one. This is one that I just wrapped up. This is a challenging game. This is Arkham Horror, the card game, specifically the Innsmouth Conspiracy. So Arkham Horror, the card game, is this giant campaign card game where you build a deck for a specific investigator, take that investigator from mission to mission, and do your best to gain experience and hopefully come up with a decent ending. There's no winning or losing. It's how well do you do? It's based on the story that you're telling. So you can kind of infer if you've won or lost based on, if the world is destroyed or not. So it's got its ups and downs. But this one in particular takes place in Innsmouth. So this is a fantastic setting in the H.P. Lovecraft universe. You have a town that's totally distrustful, all showing features of fishy beings, and it's your job to uncover the mystery of what's going on here. But the coolest thing about this one is the interesting mechanics that it adds to the game. It has actually evolved the game a little bit. Generally, it's all card-based. So everything you do, you pull up a stack of cards and boom, you're good to go. This one actually introduced tokens, which is, I know, like a novel concept. Oh my, there's tokens in a game. But for this game, it's first foray to use them. And I think that it uses it very well. It uses a lot of these key tokens that represent different items that you may find, which I think is pretty cool. But I think the most interesting thing that it did was it introduced this chaos tokens and blessings tokens. Now, we've seen this in games like Gloomhaven, for example, where you can add additional modifiers to a stack. And if you draw them, it just gives you a better chance of increasing. And what I mean by that is in Arkham Horror, the way you resolve tests is with the bag. So I want to punch something. So I use my punch stat, and then I reach into the bag and pull out a token. And the token can be anywhere from like a -4 modifier to a +1. Or it could even be a star, which means I get a special ability, or it could be an auto fail. So there's always a risk to your tests. But the way that Arkham Horror does it is they modify the bag. If you play on an easier mode, your lowest number could be like a -2. If you play on a harder mode, it can go all the way to like a -8. It's insane. So, and the scenario can also change up what some of the different symbols and tokens can do. But the cool thing here is these chaos tokens are, if you put a chaos token, these purple ones in the bag, that's a -2, and then you pull another token. So it can really stack up. There can be up to 15 of the negative ones, but there will also be 15 of the positive ones, which is really neat. You're filling the bag with blessing tokens, and when you pull those, it's +2 to the test, and you draw another one. So it's a lot of interesting bag manipulation, which is like a form of controlled bag building to help you pass tests you might not otherwise be able to pass. So maybe you're playing a librarian and you need to kill something, and hopefully you draw that bless token. You really don't want to be relying on that, because that's just, that's poor planning on your part. But, sometimes you might have to, and that can be really cool. And some characters that have been introduced really rely on this new chaos token mechanism. A lot of the cards rely on it and incorporate it, and really, heavily, incentivize you to play with it. There's some really fun cards where you can negate cards altogether by removing a certain number of these blessing tokens, or you can do a really powerful effect, but then you have to put in like 15 of the bad tokens into the bag. I love that stuff, like making a deal with the devil, essentially. Me personally, I don't like making deals with the devil, but if I'm like doing it in a game and replicating the mechanics, oh yeah, that sounds like a blast. I love the thematic nature of this. It's just so interesting. Have you touched the Arkham Horror card game? You don't normally enter these big campaign games, yeah, Dan?
No, I've not played this particular one, but I said I did play the Lord of the Rings version of it, which I know has some shared DNA with Arkham Horror, but not played this particular one. And I know this one's regarded as the better one of all of them. So I know it's had a massive investment from the company to back this one and keep it going and keep it alive. So obviously a lot of people are still playing it.
This is my favorite one for the storytelling aspect. I still think Marvel Champions gameplay and like ease of access makes it my favorite, but okay, this one it's up there. This is one of my favorite games, just period. This campaign in particular, though, I had to run through maybe 3 times before I finally beat it. I died multiple times in the first half, and it's kind of frustrating when you die, because yeah, you could totally just play on, but did you really win? So it's up to you. What are your thoughts on that? Like, if a game tells you lost, do you just restart completely, or will you continue just to see what the gameplay's like?
I would definitely restart. Yeah, and I think you want these kind of games when you're going through a scenario to be somewhat difficult. If you go through it first time easy, it's not as satisfying as when you've finally beat it. So I think you need to have at least one loss before you beat it.
I agree. And I think this game does a really good job with the variability, and it still keeps surprises, which I think is awesome, because you can go through it multiple times and still have a great different experience, which I think is really well done for a game like this, where, it could very much be just a very set structure. So I love the variability. I love like the different endings, the different paths you can go on. And of course, you can play there's like 50 characters now you can pick, which is super cool. So your deck is going to be completely different each time. So I really like this one. That is Arkham Horror, the card game. What else you got for me this morning, Dan?
Cool. Yeah. So I think I mentioned at the end of the last episode we did together that I was just about to play Seven Wonders Duel, and I've played it a few times now, and I'm glad to say this is another really good game. Definitely a rock solid 2-player game, and I wasn't quite sure what to expect from it because I wasn't a massive fan of the base Seven Wonders. I thought it was okay. I liked it. But I know a lot of people love that game, and I never really had that connection to it, and it never really blew me away. But Seven Wonders Duel, I think it's wonderful. I really love the drafting system of this game, this pyramid of cards, as you can take from the front row, but when you're taking cards, you're revealing the ones behind them for other people to grab. And sometimes that's equally as important as the card you're getting yourself, because if you know your opponent, there's a card just waiting there. If you take a card for your opponent to take, then that can really hurt you. And I like the different ways you can score in this game because not only are you building a kind of a foundation and infrastructure of your resources to collect cards in the future, but you've always got that nagging tension of the military track where your opponents are, or you are gaining these military cards, which is pushing this marker further towards your opponent, or your opponent's pushing it further towards you. When it hits certain thresholds, it can really hit you financially, and you can end up costing you money, which of course you need to do a lot of things in this game. And I really love the pacing of this game. The first round, you're just getting your basic, I said, your foundation to get your resources, etc. But it ramps up really nice, and it has a great tempo, I think. And one of those games, again, I don't think it has any fat on this game. I think it does what it does extremely well. A great meaty experience, especially in a 30-minute game. And I think I certainly understand why now this game is so acclaimed, and it's so versatile. I mean, anybody can really play this one. It's not terribly complex, but it does have a lot of good decisions there.
I love that this game, like you said, trims the fat. Every card has a distinct purpose. And if you play through it once, you're going to be like, okay, I understand the value of pretty much every card, but I want them all, or, I can't afford them right now, which sucks. So which one do I deprive? I love that selling is a powerful action. And I love the kind of race to use your wonders, but I also really like that they're powerful, but you kind of want to save them at the same time. It's so interesting. I really like this one.
Yeah. Can't complain about it at all. I think it's really well done.
Have you dabbled into any of the expansions, or is that something you're looking at?
I haven't played any of the expansions, but it is certainly something I'm looking at. Any of the, because I know that there's 2, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. Any recommendation of which one to pick first, or if you played them?
That's a good question. I think they're both actually pretty great. Agora introduces a new alternate win condition, which I think is neat. It introduces Senate seats. So I really like that. It also introduces these conspiracy cards, which gives you an opportunity to do some future planning and kind of set traps for the opponent. So I really like that. That's a neat one. The Pantheon expansion offers ways to skip your turn, which is cool. It has these gods that sit at the top, and you can pay money on your turn to trigger their abilities. And these abilities are like superpowers. They're kind of like the dual abilities, honestly. So they're really, really strong, and they kind of change as the game plays. So this is, oh man, if I would recommend one, I think I would still recommend Pantheon. So Pantheon's the first expansion, and I think just the ability to skip your turn is really cool. It offers an interesting dynamic of kind of, strategically passing while still getting a benefit of some sort. And I think it also adds more importance to the money in the game, because it really increases the value of the yellow cards, in my opinion.
Okay. Yeah, I think they're relatively cheap as well. So
yes.
I'm certainly up for giving them a go, and I'll get them in the near future.
Perfect. That's awesome. So I'm really happy that you're enjoying this. This is great.
Yeah. What's next, Mackenzie?
All right. The game that I want to talk about today is Giant Rhino Hero. So this game is hilarious. So Rhino Hero, if you haven't played, is a very, very simple kids game. All you do on your turn is you play a card, but it's a giant card. It's in the regular edition, it's a card, and you put some walls, you bend the walls, you put them on the table. It's a 3D model. You got to see it to really understand what I'm talking about. But think a mix between Uno and Jenga. That's what it is. That's what Rhino Hero is. And so this is a great kids game. But the way that we play it is we don't actually play the competitive version. We find the competitive version to be extremely lacking, to be not that fun. You kind of just sit there and things happen to you, and you're like, sure, whatever. And it's kind of anticlimactic when the tower falls because people are trying to make it fall. We generally will play a cooperative version where we'll stack things. So I know house ruling is not a thing normally, but in kids games, I think that it's probably fine to just make the game a better experience, because ultimately you want to be enjoying yourself, having fun. You're playing a kids game after all. But Rhino Hero Giant Edition might be the most insane thing I've played, because it's unreal how high this thing stacks. Now, I don't know if I'm going to find a picture here showing the absolute majesty of this game, but Giant Rhino Hero is wonderful. We did a video on our channel where I just tried to stack as much as possible, and it was insane. We had to like get on step ladders and things like that. I've taken it to work a couple of times and let my kids try it out. We had like maybe 10 minutes left at the end of the day, so I had them try to go as high as possible, and they got every card but one on it. They were on chairs and on each other to try to get it as high as possible. This thing it's massive, it's terrifying, it's fun, and the fact that everybody's working together and you have that tension of, oh, it's great. But the best mechanic in this game is the Rhino Hero itself. So if you look closely here, you'll see that there is a little rhino meeple that's going to be jumping around the cards. Some of the cards will have this like symbol on it, and you have to find the rhino piece wherever he's at and place him on the symbol. And that adds a whole bunch of tension, because this piece, especially in the Giant Edition, is huge. It's like this, it's like as big as my head. So when you're moving this giant wooden piece, it's going to destabilize the tower, or it could strategically put a good anchor on the tower. It's so fun. This game is a hoot. It's a blast. The Giant Hero is ridiculously unnecessary, but you don't need the giant one. But man, if it isn't fun, if it isn't a showpiece, this is crazy. Have you played Rhino Hero, or been interested in it, or seen it and want to play?
Yeah, I actually used to own Rhino Hero, not the giant version, but the little one, and it was a real novelty factor that we all enjoyed for the time we had it. But I think, as you said, it's a lot better to see how high you can get the tower rather than trying to shaft your opponents and forcing them to knock it over. But yeah, it's fun. I think it has its shelf life, but I enjoyed my time with it. It's good fun.
I agree. It's definitely not the deepest game in the world, but if you bring this one to a convention, people will stop by. And that's kind of what we were thinking when we brought it into the library. We had it for a while. I gave it to my nephew, our original copy, our small one, and then we started going back to things, and we were like, okay, this might be a good time to pick it back up and maybe go all out. Now, speaking of giant editions, do you have any like gigantic games in your collection?
I don't actually know. No, I don't know. Just all boring, dry, dusty Euros.
If you could get a giant edition of any of your games, what would you get?
Oh, good question. Maybe I'll just go for El Grande. Yeah, why not go for my favorite game? I'll do El Grande.
I think a giant edition of Blood Rage would be insane. Could you imagine, even just for the cards, having a full-size card? Oh man, for drafting, that'd be great. I would love that. Even if it was just scaled a little bit, that'd be so fun. And even bigger miniatures and getting to see all the detail. Because Adrian Smith's art is so good, but it's like confined to those little cards. Oh, that'd be so awesome. Yep.
Yeah, that's true.
That'd be great. All right, Dan, what else we got?
Okay, yeah, so the last game I'm going to talk about this episode is a game called Four Gardens. This one's actually only just come out in the UK. I think it came out last year in the US. This is a relatively simple, almost family Gateway Plus level game. Pretty simple, but has some depth there. This is a pretty basic, almost contract fulfillment style game. You got cards with a bunch of stuff that they need. You're getting those resources to cash in the card. However, this game has a slight variation on that and has some mechanisms that I haven't seen before, particularly through the use of this pagoda. So you've got this 4-tiered pagoda, all of these different tiers depicting a different resource. So you've got your wood and your stone, etc. And the idea is you're trying to collect these resources from this pagoda to get these contracts fulfilled. But there is real interesting restrictions on this, because the way you actually acquire these resources in the first place is by playing these cards, and these cards are going to show the order in which you acquire these resources, and you're going to either get them from top to bottom or bottom to top. And you can even manipulate these different levels of this pagoda as well, which will show the amount of resources you get. But you might think, why don't I just why does it matter? I can get all the resources. Well, you have a very strict capacity on what you can hold at any time. So if you are forced to take it from bottom to top, for example, you'll get all the the wheat before you'd get everything else, or whatever it is. So you might completely fill up on wheat before you get to the wood, which is the wood you needed. And it's quite interesting. It's quite puzzly, and it's quite a nifty little device that works quite well. I think, despite that, and I think that might be the thing that most people would take away from this game, that actually wasn't the thing I liked most about this game. The thing I liked most about this game was the scoring system, because when you actually buy these cards, you're basically playing these cards face up, which makes a panoramic painting. And when you're kind of playing the same type again and again and again to complete that painting, you not only score for the card you just completed, but all the ones you've previously played in that painting already. So by the time you're playing the third or fourth one in that card, you're scoring quite a few different colors at once. But once you hit once you hit the top of these scoring tracks, you actually start to push your opponents down the track rather than going further. And that's quite cool, because if you push them far enough, you can actually push them off the board, which means they can never come back on. So it's got this this kind of plate spinning where you want to make sure that I need to score this color, because if my opponent scores another one, I'm not going to be able to score that color ever again. And I think that's a real natty idea, and actually was quite interesting. But the rest of it is very, very gateway, very simple, but it works quite well for a 45-minute game. And I enjoyed it.
This one looked really neat. I didn't know that it had any interesting mechanics over the pagoda. So that's when I looked at this, I was like, oh, cool. It's a gimmick. Let's try this sometime. But yeah, I just haven't had a chance to play this. This looks neat. So I'm glad you enjoyed it. Would this be one that you would recommend?
I don't feel it has the legs at the moment. I think if it had maybe an expansion that added just another layer that could appease more experienced gamers or more kind of advanced level gamers, I think there's something here. I think this has the DNA of something quite special, but it's just holding back a little bit, because I love that. I love that capacity thing where you want to take the resources, but you can't store them. And I think the gameplay or the kind of the strategies relating to the mechanisms aren't that complex, and there's still ground to be explored with this one.
Gotcha. All right.
Yeah.
All right. So nothing extremely resounding, but a cool game and a cool experience.
Yeah.
That's good. I'm glad that you enjoyed it at least. Excellent. So the last game that I want to talk about is a reprint with fantastic art, a dungeon crawler in a different way. This is Catacombs 3rd edition. Now, before we jump into this, have you played Catacombs, Dan?
I have not played Catacombs.
Okay, so Catacombs here is exactly as I described. It has you playing with a group of 3 other heroes against a overlord, so a boss. So it's a 1 versus all game. You have this one character controlling all the minions, and the heroes are going to be taking actions to hopefully defeat all of the minions and jump from room to room to room. The heroes only lose if everybody dies at the same time. There's a mode where you can play where if somebody dies, they come back at half health, and that's generally the mode we play. Otherwise, it's a little bit too, I guess, overpowered for the bad guy to just kind of crush everybody. So if somebody is killed, they come back with half health, but they lose all their money. So it's still good to not die. But the whole premise of the game is you are playing a dexterity game. You're going to be flicking your characters. You're going to be flipping your weapons. And the way the game does this is so good. So, for example, if I were to tell you, Dan, throw a fireball, how do you think it would be represented in this game?
Oh, I don't know. Is this some kind of overarm throw or something, is it?
So all you do is there's literally a token that's a fireball. You put it on the board and you flick it. That's how you throw a fireball. If you want to throw an arrow, what do you think's going to happen?
Flick it.
Yeah, you put the arrow on the board and you flick it, and that's it. That's how this game works. If you're going to punch somebody, you literally flick your dude, and if it hits somebody, they take damage. It is so straightforward. Like, yes, everything that you're doing in this game makes perfect sense, and it's so interesting, so fun. And the coolest thing, I think, is how the cover system works, because it's literally cover. There are these giant like barriers in the game, and I think that's so cool because they're this just big wooden cubes that just are these big wooden pillars that sit in the game here. You see those black ones there? So they are gigantic, they don't move, and if your character is behind it, nobody's going to hit you, right? But you can use it as cover, and say you're using an arrow, you put the arrow to the left of your character within an inch, you flick it, and it represents it perfectly because you are behind something, you're peeking out and you're shooting it. It's so cool. I think that's so well done. And there's some characters that have like special abilities. Well, most characters have some sort of special abilities. And all that dungeon crawly stuff is represented. There's poison, there's items and artifacts and special moves and conditions. And a lot of the shots have different abilities. Like my favorite shot is there's like a levitation shot where you could pick one of the giant barriers and raise it up. So you literally grab it off the table, flick a shot through it, and it falls back down. It's so cool. Oh man, I think this game does a great job, but when we played it, the heroes got smoked. Like they got destroyed. We played on a harder difficulty, and we couldn't even get past the first room. We just got murdered. It was really funny. I'm not gonna say it was like the greatest time in the world because it was a little disheartening. We had to play it a second time. We just retried, but oh man, this one is so fun. The artwork is by Kwanchai Moria. It's this lovely cartoony artwork, and it's really, really fun. I love the different character models. I love the different villains that exist, and just the playmat version is so fun because things work so nicely on this. Fantastic. If you're a fan of dexterity games or just interested in a weird mishmash of both of them, this game does it extremely well. I really like Catacombs. Dan, any interest? Would you play this, and why?
I would play it for that novelty factor. It sounds fun, and certainly something I'd definitely be up for trying it just for that fun factor.
Now, when in games with one versus many, do you prefer to be the many or the one?
I'm not too bothered actually. I'll happily try any. Yeah, I'd try both at least once. I think. I suppose it depends on the game really, but I got no strict preference.
There are some of these games where the overlord kind of feels just like a DM, and they don't really get to play, and that, for me, that's kind of unfortunate. I don't like that at all. But in this game, you are actively, your goal is to kill them, right? And realistically, the heroes are pretty overpowered because they pretty much will always win as they go from room to room, and they're going to get stronger. They're going to get better. So you can really like go off in this game, and I think it's neat because you don't have to like hold anything back. Where in a game like Imperial Assault or Descent, if the Overlord keeps winning during campaigns, and they can like really steamroll the heroes, and it can be pretty disheartening. So I like that this is a shorter experience where you really can go all out. So I like that here. Cool. Sweet. Yeah, so those are the games we've been playing. Let's jump to our next section, our crowdfunding picks. Dan, what do you got for me? You got one this week. What is it?
I have got
one.
I hope
it hasn't been canceled.
I have backed a game on Kickstarter. Yeah, so I've actually backed something that's quite light. This is a beautiful looking game called The Gardens. This is a relatively simple looking, almost tile placement style game as you're trying to build. I think it's the Australian botanical garden. One of the main reasons was the artwork. I think I love this art style. This almost like big, thick, black outlined garden tiles that you're placing down. And it's one of those, I know there's a lot of games like this where you're trying to place tiles down to score as many points as you can, depending on variable objectives, that kind of thing. But I suppose one of the biggest drawing points for me, not only the artwork, but the actual designers. So this is made by Matthew Dunstan and Brett Gilbert, and everything I've played by them has generally been really good, and I think they've got quite a good reputation now, and I'm certainly willing to give this one a try. I like the idea it's so variable. The kind of end of the game visuals look fantastic because you have these real bright trees and stuff like that, and also some of the different strategies and things you can take, or at least tactical decisions, seem quite interesting because when you place a tile, I believe you move a meeple from one area on the board to another one, and sometimes you might score points for like each other maybe landmark that they've passed on the way on that track or stuff. So, like it might say if you place this tile for every kind of river you've passed on the way, you score X amount of points, that kind of thing. So I think that's quite nice, and it's something slightly different to differentiate itself from a lot of these other games, but. A big part of it is the visuals, and it's quite affordable as well. So yeah, I'm willing to give this one a try, and hopefully it's going to be good.
This looks cool, and this has that thing that you love in Kickstarters that we saw in Coco Pelli with like the variable tiles, where all you're getting if you back the game is more variability, and that's awesome. I love that. I love that you still get the same core game, but with just additional things. Fantastic. This looks like a great pick. Fatal Paper Cuts joining us this morning. Good morning. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Good morning.
Anything else you want to add on this one? It looks great. I think Grail Games does an awesome job with their production in general. I'm a big fan of just pretty much a lot of, well, I would say a lot of things they've put out recently. Yellow and Yangtze is one that we keep on going back to. But this looks really nice. I like it. I like the aesthetic. It gives me like the park, some of the park's postcard vibes. Looks fun.
Yeah. I mean, it's a 30 to 45-minute game, and hopefully there's some relative depth here in compared to that ratio. So, just hopefully it's going to be good. And it sounds like it's going to be good on paper. Maybe nothing special, but who knows? Sometimes these games don't have that, or something like that isn't apparent at first. So
now, are you going to get this roll and write version as well?
I've chosen not to get the roll and write version as well.
Why?
I don't know. I kind of get this nagging feeling that it's just a tacked on thing. Who knows? It could be even better than the original one or the actual base game. But I've just taken a bit of a gamble and chosen not to take that one.
I get it. It's only got like like a couple inches of screen, so I could see why you may be a little apprehensive. Yeah, it kind of feels a little tacked on.
Yeah.
Cool. Anything else you want to add, Dan?
No, that's it really.
Awesome.
Just a miracle that I've backed something.
That's so funny to me. That cracks me up. All right. Now, this game is one that I talked about on crowdfunding maybe a week, 2 weeks ago. This one is a huge campaign game. And whenever I back one of these giant campaign games, it really has to do something special or has to be accessible or approachable, something that's going to get played, because otherwise they just sit there, right? So it has to be good. I passed on a lot of these big things, but this one, I think, and unfortunately, the more I looked into it, because I looked into it for the crowdfunding, and the more I looked into it, the more I was like, dang, I like this. I like this. No, I like this because the price point is not cheap. This is not Lands of Galaxy, Arydia, The Paths We Dared Tread. This game, it looks so generic when I first looked at it. It introduces you to a classic fantasy world. You play as a character. You construct the character. But the more I looked into it, the character customization is actually pretty sweet. You get your own creations. You can pick the head of your character, the body of your character, the equipments, the loadout, the name. The customization is really on point. You get to pick a lot of stuff. And that's all pretty superfluous. That's just how the beginning of the game goes. Really, you're picking a class, and that's sure. But I really like the little touches they did. But the biggest thing here, and the one that really got me, was a mixture of the storytelling and the combat. So in Arydia, you play this huge sprawling campaign, and you're going to be going from tile to tile, these large hex tiles here. And in those hex tiles, you're going to have like locations that you can visit, and you go into those locations, and those get brought out into cards. And these cards are going to be populated with, maybe enemies, maybe characters, interactions that you can go. People compared it to something like Animal Crossing or I would say maybe Final Fantasy, where you see a little icon on the map and you get zoomed into it. And then while you're in there, you can interact with things. And I really like that system. I like that it has set locations, but you can also travel along this large map. But the thing that did it for me was the combat, actually. So I looked further, and this game gave me a lot of these big adventuring vibes, but also cool strategic puzzle combat system that's similar to Sleeping Gods, actually. And Sleeping Gods is one of my favorite games from this year. I think it is my favorite game from 2021 so far. And the combat system has you basically using your attacks to create these polyomino pieces. Each of your weapons in this game is going to have a shape that it goes with. And these shapes here, something like this. These shapes here, well, not like this. This is how the enemies fight you. But these shapes here are going to be in specific patterns. And so you can either go for these big hits where you're hitting a lot of sections, or sometimes it won't fit correctly and you'll be really inefficient with your attack. So it's kind of up to you how you want to distribute your damage, because do you go to try to fit that whole piece in, or do you just put in maybe a small section? I really like this system because it has you constantly asking the question of, do I want to be efficient, or do I want to kill potential threats? And I think that's really neat. There's lots of different enemies in here. There are a lot of hidden enemies that you'll also find, but the combat system seems so straightforward, so simple. And recently they just unlocked a stretch goal where the game now has a soundtrack, which I love to do. I love soundtracks in games. But the open world, the locations, as you can see here, the storybooks, the events, the combat as a whole, I think that this is so interesting. It also has this great level up system. Check this out. This is like the coolest thing, the easy setup here, where you just open up a box and you just set all of your trays out and you're done. That's so nice to me. I think that's going to get it played a heck of a lot more. You don't really have to do any of like the filing that you would do in a game like Seventh Continent. I really like that. You will probably with some of the locations and cards, but I think that this game looks fantastic. And the more I look into it, the more I find things that I'm really impressed with. And it kills me. It kills me because I was so set to pass on this one because I was like, this one, it looks fine, but nothing special. Psych, there's a lot of special in this game. So it got me. It got me. Are you familiar with this one, Dan?
Only through the kind of buzz it's got at the moment. To be honest, that dice system, the combat system sounds really interesting. I mean, that's normally one of the biggest obstacles for me to play games like this because they're normally roll to resolve games, that kind of thing. And something like this makes me think, oh, I'd love to try that. But yeah, sounds really cool.
It's really neat because it's deterministic on your side.
Yeah.
But you don't know what the enemies are going to do. And I think that's perfect because you're guaranteed to do what you want on your turn. It's so cool because you get to puzzle it out, but it's kind of a push your luck almost because you're anticipating these attacks. And is it okay to be inefficient and kill an enemy to take less hits, but then maybe they're going to compile later? And the way the enemies hit you is on this board down here. You're going to have all of these armors that represent you, and obviously as you play, you're going to level those up. But the enemy hit dice relate to your armor. And so when you take damage, you're going to be flipping these tiles or putting damage tokens on these tiles that represent your armor. And if you take enough, Breath of the Wild style, your stuff's going to fall off. You're going to, oh no, you now have your arms showing. And when you take damage now, it's going to get through. And it's so cool. I love that. You have this risk management, resource management when you're taking damage too. It looks so cool. I think this one looks really fun. That's Arydia, the paths we dare tread. So I'm quite excited, and I'm pleasantly surprised. I think it looks like a lot of fun.
Yeah. So out of all these bigger games like this is probably the one that you've sold to me the most. I actually really want to try that.
Yeah. The quickness of it, the engagement, the ease of access, and it just looks bright and fun. I'm excited. Cool. So that's our crowdfunding picks this morning. Any other crowdfunding things pique your interest? If you want to just make
no, not this time. just that one.
Okay. All right. That brings us to our news items. We'll keep it light, only one thing each. But what thing did you really want to talk about this week, Dan?
Yeah, just a really quick one for me. I've noticed that there's been an article on Board Game Geek saying that there's going to be a new edition of Brussels 1893, which is a game I've been after for quite a while. It's been out of print. However, this one is going to be with the expansion, so it's almost like a big box version, but with a single expansion. Very, very kind of dryish Euro style game, but has some pretty interesting mechanisms in this one. If you're not familiar with it, very, very gamery things, such as you have this grid of actions, and you're basically dividing this grid to kind of determine which actions are potentially available that round, and then you are basically activating these actions, but depending on the columns they're in, you can get like majority bonuses and things. And it has some pretty unique mechanisms that I haven't seen before. And I'm really happy that this game's coming back because it gives me an opportunity to buy it and try it with so yeah, just happy that a game that's relatively successful but not massively mainstream is coming back into availability.
Now the art here is this new, a new edition of the art as well?
Yeah, that's certainly not the cover of the original one.
So this is the artist who does the same for High Society. So I love the artwork in that game. So I'm excited to see what they do for this one. This looks great.
Yeah. So hopefully the actual components themselves are going to be re-illustrated as well, because I think the original one looked okay. It didn't look great, but if the actual new game looks as good as this cover does, then yeah, 2 thumbs up from me.
Fantastic. Anything else you want to add on this one?
No, that's it really. Just if you've been looking for it as well, it's going to come back sooner or later.
I've heard this one mentioned, but it's never one that I've seen anybody ever pull out. Maybe that's because it's been out of print, but I've never had a chance to play it. So I actually know nothing about this. You said you've been looking for it for a while, but it's been gone?
Yeah, it's been out of print. They did release a card game version of it, which I've got actually, but I've not played yet, called Brussels 1897. So pretty easy to confuse the two, which has, I think, a slightly stripped back version, but has a lot of similar things. But yeah, I mean, I've not played it myself. I've not seen it be played, but it kind of has all those things that draw my eyes to it, and I will pick it up to certainly try it out.
Gotcha. Perfect. Now, my news item is actually on the same document. This is a new acquisition of the game Bohnanza. So Bohnanza is this super goofy bean trading game. It takes quite a while. It's super light. It uses some funky mechanisms, and the artwork is hilarious. To bean or not to bean, what a catchphrase. But the designer is Uwe Rosenberg. This cracks me up. The fact that this game exists is so funny to me. And the fact it's fun is even crazier to me because it's such a bonkers game. It's such a bonkers theme. I never thought that something like this would be a thing, but it's one that we really enjoy. And I just don't get it, how it's so fun, because it honestly takes too long, and it honestly incorporates mechanisms I'm not a huge fan of, but it works. So it was recently acquired by a new company, but the big thing here is they're bringing some expansions that were only available in Europe to the American marketplace, and I think that's really fun. We have a couple of expansions on our end, but generally the big thing that gets played is just that base game. So I'm excited to see the future of Bohnanza. But the thing that I don't want them to do is I do not want them to change the artwork. I know that may be selfish of me because it's so charming, but I'm curious to know what they would do with Bohnanza with this new acquisition. Any ideas or suggestions? Are you afraid of losing Bohnanza's culture?
No, I mean, I'm completely with you. I mean, when I think of Bohnanza, I think of that cover. It's like iconic, isn't it? Whether you like it or not, that's what Bohnanza is, and it would be a massive shame to go away from that.
What would they do though? Like, oh man, I hope they don't go like the animation route and make everything smooth and curved, or if they just replace it and they're not people anymore. Could you imagine just beans?
Horrendous. Yeah,
oh
we can't
God.
have that happening. No.
Oh, that sounds terrible. But yep. So that's that. If you're not familiar with Bohnanza, it's a bean trading game that incorporates this hand management system where I have a problem because in card games I fidget with my hand a lot when I play cards. I like to kind of sift through and organize and be like, okay, I'm going to do this first and kind of plan things out. But in Bohnanza, you're not allowed to move your hand; it's stuck. And that's kind of interesting because you can only access the cards in the back, I believe, or the front, one of those two. But I really like that system, but it's one that you always have to constantly remind people to not mess with their hand, and I think that's kind of funny. So those are our news items. That's Bohnanza, and is it Brussels? Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, Brussels. Yeah,
Brussels. Okay.
1893.
I know I'm not the best with pronunciations, especially when it comes to city names. So thank you. I appreciate it, Dan. Great. So now we jump into our next section, my favorite section. This is the card and component appreciation. So Dan, what do you got for me? What are we talking about?
Okay, so I've got a relatively simple one, but one that functionally works. This is the arenas, or the arena pieces for Coliseum. The Coliseum is a re-implementation of an older Kramer and Kiesling game. Actually, I don't know if it's Michael Kiesling, but at least Wolfgang Kramer, of The Princes of Florence. This one is about trying to put on these huge productions in your own arena, getting like the kind of lions and gladiators, chariots, all that kind of thing. And you're trying to put on these big grandiose shows to get money. However, throughout the game, you're going to want to put on bigger and bigger shows. And in order to do that, you're going to need to upgrade your arenas to get bigger and bigger pieces. And I like the way that that's depicted by the actual components, where you start off with just the two end pieces, but as you expand your arena, you kind of slot the ones in between, expanding it. And that's only not a good thing visually, because it works obviously logically. You're getting more spectators, you need more seating. But I also like the fact that throughout the game, you've got all these kind of senators and all these, the emperor, etc., going around this track, and you are going to be really benefit when these people land in your arenas to sit and watch your productions. And the fact that your odds are increased of those noble figures landing in your arenas because you're physically capturing more spaces that they can land in. So I think that works really well. It's such a simple and clean mechanism, but it just works. And I think it's just a really nice, not only component wise, but the way it actually affects gameplay as well. And so yeah, that's my pick this episode, is the arena pieces for Coliseum.
This looks great. So in this, how big can you make one of these Coliseums?
You can make them. That is actually the one on the left there with the yellow player is the biggest you can make it. So
you can't have like the grand Coliseum, 5-10 tiles. There's no corner pieces.
It would be great if you could, but there wouldn't be enough time in this game to do that. You're pretty much. I think it's 5 rounds. So and you can only make I think it's 1 investment per round. So you're not only trying to invest in your actual arena growing, you want to actually. You can add more seating in. You can get these other things as well that can let you manipulate dice, etc. So yeah, the actual biggest productions only need 4 arena pieces. But it would be cool if you could go even bigger. Yeah.
How fun! This is great. I like that tactile feel, and I love how there's the little slots for everybody. That's fun.
Yeah.
And there's a little baby one there, just not as grandiose, not as exciting. Awesome. So that is Coliseum. So cool. I like it. I actually haven't played this one. That's one that I want to give a try. I've heard a lot of people talk about that. Is that the trading game?
Yes, there is a good amount of negotiation and things. The game for some reason puts this really weird, meticulous method of trading in, which doesn't quite fit right. So you're supposed to go from like one player takes their turn, they ask if who wants to trade with them, then they resolve it, and then it goes to the next player. Where there's no reason why it shouldn't just be a free form. Everybody say, "I take that, you take that, I'll take that." It adds so much more energy and fun into the game, and it's a weird rule that I didn't quite understand why they put that in there.
Do you house rule it and play, just free form trading?
Yes, absolutely. Every time.
Gotcha. Cool. Awesome. All right. Now my component or card appreciation is going to be a game that we already talked about, actually. This is going to be Arkham Horror, the card game. I really want to highlight this specific character, though. So when you play Arkham Horror, the card game, you pick an investigator. And generally, your investigator is going to have stats that you're going to be using to do your different tasks. So this brain one is to protect you from psychological damage. The book one is going to help you investigate. The fist icon is going to help you kill things. And then the foot icon is going to help you get out of the way and evade enemies. So you have lots of cool things. And most of the time, your characters are going to have varying stats. And so 4 or 5 is really strong. 1 is not so good. But this character is the one that I just recently got through the campaign with. And he has 1s for everything. He sucks. He's awful. And I think he's so fun. This character is so weird. So are you familiar with the Arkham mythos at all, Dan?
Very basic stuff. Yeah, not much at all.
When Preston Fairmont, the millionaire, comes up, what do you think?
Well, you'd think some suave geezer here. Clearly done well in life. Good-looking chap. Nice moustache. Yeah.
So Preston Fairmont, in this world, that's exactly what he is. He is loaded. In this game, there are a couple of resources that you manage. The first ones are your health. The second one are your deck of cards. And the third one here is the resource pool. So resource is the economy in the game. To play cards, you got to pay a certain amount of resources. Preston Fairmont here, his ability says anytime you gain resources, you put them on his family inheritance. Now, what does that mean? So right off the bat, we know that Preston sucks. He's got no stats. But you know what he does have is sweet, sweet cash. He comes into the game with what is called the family inheritance. And this card here says that every turn, when your turn begins, you get 4 resources. And that's insane. Every turn, you get 400% more money than every other character in the game. And you can use that to do lots of dumb stuff. Yes, he sucks, but who needs to be good at things when you could pay people to do stuff for you? And that's his whole shtick, is he can play these huge, ridiculously costed cards. Your deck is full of stuff that, normally you'd never be able to play. But with Preston Fairmont, you're loaded. You can do whatever you want on your turn. And you know how I mentioned that sometimes you get the star when you pull resolve tests, and that gives you like a special ability. His special ability is if you pull the star, you pay $2 and you automatically pass the test. So I think that's really fun that he has access to, these fun combos, these fun components. And that's all because he is loaded. And I think that is so fun. It's so different because normally in the game, you're going to be kind of like building off your stats and trying to do things, conventionally. Yeah, I'll have this weapon and I'll fight. It'll give me +1 attack and I get some extra damage. Preston's like, I'm just going to pay $4. I'm going to pay $4 and you're going to give me, you're going to give me a clue, or I'm going to send you away, or I'm going to pay this guy to help me evade you. Or it's so funny. It cracks me up. And he's so different. And there's lots of different ways you can use him. The first way is you can do that route where you just, you pay other people to do things for you, or you can go the poor man route, which is the route that I went actually, where you play these cards where every turn you can pay resources to boost your stats like incredibly to do really cool tasks. And that's kind of the route that I went, where maybe you're getting +8 to this test, and it's insane. Like, your stats 1, but still, it's so cool. You can be flexible. There's lots of ways to play them. So that's my card component appreciation, is Preston Fairmont. I love characters that just kind of break the game and how they're played. So that's one that I really enjoy.
Cool. Interesting pick there. Yeah, I like things like that as well. Just stuff that's different.
It's so neat. I think it's so crazy, and I love it. So that's our component card appreciation. Now we go to a very controversial segment, this or that. So this or that, our question. Before we jump into this one, what was our question from last week, Dan? What did we talk about?
So the last episode, we talked about 2 iconic filler games, this or that. Biblios versus For Sale. So we both agreed, we both love both of these games. Still, years and years and years after these been released, we still regarded them as probably our first and second best filler games. They're both outstanding. So it was really interesting to put them against each other, and the results were very, very close. So I think you selected Biblios as your pick if you had to choose between the 2. I chose For Sale. Because it's slightly more accessible and maybe scales to the higher player counts a bit better, but Biblios plays better at 2. So again, it swings and roundabouts. But yeah, the results were very close, but with For Sale just pipping Biblios at the post with 56% to Biblios's 44%.
No, it's fine. I understand. Both those games are incredible, and I agree with you. I think just for a general filler, For Sale is probably going to be the winner. It is super quick. The mechanics are super limited, and it just makes so much sense. I think that game is just so good. But I prefer, personally, the depth in Biblios. I love just the agonizing decisions in that one. It really makes me. I really love the feeling of Biblios, and that's why my pick. But I agree. I'll give this one to you, Dan. It's yours. You win. Okay, you got it. It's yours.
Yeah.
And we got Indra joining us this morning. Thanks so much for coming in.
Hi, Indra.
Oh, man. All right. But now today, our next topic, this or that, campaign or scenario-based games. So I know this is a pretty big topic, especially when it comes to different forms of card games, the LCGs. There's a whole bunch of different models that approach this, these big fantasy dungeon crawlers. This could be a make or break it thing. So what do you prefer, Dan? Campaign or scenario-based?
Just because of my lifestyle and the way I play games, scenario-based are always going to win, because I like to dive into a game, dive back out, play something else. And if I was to play campaign games, the gap between each player would be so big that I would lose complete track of what the campaign was, where I was, lose all investment in it. I'd love to be able to fully do a deep dive into a campaign game, just keep it on the table for weeks and weeks and weeks on end, playing it every night. But unfortunately, that just doesn't work for me. And yeah, maybe one day my mind will be changed and I will get a nice campaign game to sink my teeth into. But yeah, my method of playing is always going to lean towards scenarios. How about yourself?
For me, I really appreciate both. I think both have lots of wonderful things to offer. I love progressive scales and leveling up, and I love improving and refining a character and getting comfortable with that character in a campaign game. But I have to go with you. I think scenario-based games are the way to do it. I think that they can, introduce a bunch of fun new rules. They allow you to play, if you're playing with a lot of different characters, they allow you to play bunch of different characters and really get a different feel of the game. They allow you to enter situations that are varied and different, and they get played. And that's huge. And that's one of the reasons that I prefer Marvel Champions over something like Arkham Horror, the card game, or even Lord of the Rings. I think I love the scenario system in that game. I do like the gameplay a bit more in Arkham Horror, but I think Lord of the Rings scenario system is wonderful. I love the quest mechanic. I love how you're going from place to place, but holy cow, I just think that scenario games are going to get played, and that's huge. You can pull them out for a one shot. And I think the biggest thing is the thing you mentioned with remembering the story and the investment. That's huge. Like, we're playing through Midara right now. Have you heard of this game?
Heard of it, yeah. Don't know much about it.
Midara comes with it's a 5-chapter book in this first giant box. It's an act, so the 5 chapters per act, and each chapter has about, I want to say, 20 missions in it, 21 missions, something like that. We've just finished the first chapter, and so that was about I'm not going to say how many hours. There were a lot of hours of gameplay in that, but in the chapter, the stories that you're reading, even with the narration, the story chapters in between are like 20 minutes long. So there's like significant story beats that you're going to be following. And if you put it down for a while, like you said, you're probably going to forget a lot of this. And you may have to go back and read. I think actually that's less of a problem with those larger story chunks because, there's a lot of stories. So you're able to get a lot of background, really actually, get invested in said characters. But when it comes to smaller bits and stories, you definitely will probably forget some of that key information. So sometimes we find ourselves writing notes and kind of like, keeping things in mind, keeping a pad. But that's a lot of extra book work, right? So,
yeah.
We'll see. But campaign games are pretty fantastic. I do like them, but I think I got to go with scenario. Any other things you want to add to this one, Dan?
No, not really. I mean, I said I love the idea of a campaign, but just haven't really got the time or so many other games to play. So many other games. When I'm playing a campaign game again and again and again, it means that all other games are going to be sat there not doing anything. So.
You're totally right. Now, you recently got Gloomhaven, right? I mean, that's a foray into campaigns. Have you even cracked it open yet?
No, it's not been cracked open yet. Sat on a shelf of many games yet to be played. But I think Gloomhaven might be the exception because, when it's got that kind of good press and that much acclaim, then surely it's going to be something special. So my plan is to try get that one to the table and keep it there for as long as I can, and maybe try smash it out as quickly as I can to try and get as much out of it, because once it goes back on the shelf, chances are it's going to sit there for a while before it gets back on the table.
Now, luckily with Gloomhaven, it's more of the mechanics first and the story second. So I think you'll have a good time with it because it is so mechanic driven. So I think you'll like that one. Okay.
Yeah, still excited to try it. Yeah.
And Indra agrees with both of us. He says +1 is scenario-based games. He just can't finish it. Can't finish Tainted Grail and Seventh Continent. That's really funny because Tainted Grail, I don't think is that long. It's only like 12 chapters, right? Something like that. I think Tainted Grail is fairly straightforward. Seventh Continent, though, holy cow, I agree with you there. That one could be forever. Oh my gosh. And the fact that you have to grind in both of those games, I totally see it, Indra. Yep, I can see how that could be one that you just can't get through. Tainted Grail is actually one that we're thinking of getting rid of, and we actually already got rid of Seventh Continent. So those are ones that have entered the library, and potentially both of them may have left because of that reason in particular, is just they take forever to play, and they have that grinding, and I think save the grinding for the video games, right? Oh, man, holy cow. What do you think of that, grinding in board games?
I don't think I've ever played a game where you do have to grind anything. I couldn't think of anything worse.
It's pretty bad. It's when a game feels like work, that's when it's just like, I'm out. This is done.
Yeah.
So, no fun. All right. So that is our This or That segment. Please give a vote to this. It'll be on my channel here in the next, probably tomorrow. I'll put it up. But let us know, do you prefer campaign or scenario-based games? Love to hear what you think. Yeah. Awesome. So now we jump to our next segment. This is another one that I really, really like. This is mechanism appreciation. We're going to talk about a couple of things that we just love, the way that they're done and implemented into board games. Dan, what you got for me?
Okay, yeah. So the mechanism I'm going to talk about this show is something that's very subtle, but something I think is quite clever and different to anything else that I've seen. So you're probably familiar with a lot of drafting games. So I should say the game I'm talking about is Inish. Inish is a game I think we both played quite recently. This is like an area control style game where you are trying to get a particular board state in order to win, and your opponents have the opportunity to stop you from doing it. Miniatures, but a slightly different feel for a miniature style game. It's a bit more cerebral. This one is the particular mechanism I'm talking about is the actual way you draft your cards. So in order to take any action in this game, you're going to have to play a card, and in order to collect those cards in the first place, you're going to have to do the traditional pass and play style thing. You know, where you have a hand of cards, you pick the card you want to play, pass the rest to your opponents, and keep going around in that motion. But with most pass and play draft games, you are taking a card and you'll put it face down out of the way for the rest of the game until everybody's picked all their cards they're having for that round. In Inis, you actually keep the cards that you've collected prior and can actually choose to put them back into the fold for the next players. So you can actually have that more freedom and flexibility to adjust your plans on the fly. So, if you pick a card that you're not so thrilled with the first time, and you get a new hand of cards, and you think, oh, I want 2 from this set, I could put the one I didn't want from the first one back and keep the two that I keep and pass the rest as I would normally. So I love that extra, very, very subtle element of flexibility. And as I said, tactically adjusting on a whim. I think it's just really clever, and I can't think of any other game that's actually done that. So yeah, that's my pick this week. I just love very subtle, nuanced decisions like that. And I thought that was quite creative and quite clever.
I really like this. Now, I think it's kind of funny because this is hilarious because this kind of reverses drafts. In a game like this, where you can grab multiple cards from a single pack and you're only drawing one at a time, if your first pack is all good cards, then you feel kind of bad because you're like, oh man, the next person's going to get 2 of these. And you're just, I think that's really funny. But I think in Inish, it's cool enough where most of these cards are really good. So I think you're not going to feel too bad, but I just think that's really funny. Whereas in most drafting games, you're like, you're only going to get one of these, and you hope that your hand has at least one card that you like. So I think that's funny that it kind of turns it on its head a little bit. But I think it's a good choice, Dan. I like this too.
Yeah, I mean, yes, like sometimes you might think I had no intention of attacking anyone this turn, but I've got an opportunity to get all the attack cards, so no one's going to attack me. So yeah, it's just nice. It's very, very subtle, as I said, but it works.
Totally agree. All right. So the game that I want to talk about today is a really cool mechanic, and this is the stunt mechanic in Tidal Blades Heroes of the Wreath. So in Tidal Blades here, we are going to be taking in the roles of different characters that are all vying to become the next Tidal Blade, like the champion, essentially the protector of the land. And each of your characters is going to have these dials in front of them, and these dials are going to represent different things. You've got focus, which is the number of dice that you can roll in your tests. You've got synergy, which gives you special ability cards, and you have resilience, which is the amount of dice that you can refresh. The last stat here is spirit, and it doesn't do anything on its own. And I think that's really interesting, that you are kind of investing in a stat that by itself is worthless. And I think that's really fascinating. Now, what does it actually do, though? In the game, as you play, you can acquire what are called stunt cards. And these stunt cards are going to have effects based on how high your spirit value is. So you can kind of see one here in this section. You get them from the Coliseum. But these stunt cards are going to have abilities that vary based on how high your skill is. So for example, this card here gives you a die, but based on how high your skill is, that die will be upgraded or something will happen with that die. You may get multiple dice. So interesting, so cool. Some of these abilities will allow you to get extra resources, and based on how many you have, you get extra resources. Maybe you're allowed to refresh a number of dice based on how high your stat is. I think that's so neat that there is a function that the better you are the better your spirit is, the better you're showing off during these stunt cards. And I think that's really fun thematically, but also gameplay wise. I think it makes for a really interesting, really cool mechanism. I really like this. So those are the stunt cards in Tidal Blades. Have you seen something like this before?
No, I haven't. No, sounds really cool. Yeah.
I think it's really refreshing. I think it's really fun. And I love that different characters can kind of use it differently. And in tandem with the player powers, Spirit, I think, makes for a lot of fun. I really like the way that this is incorporated in the game. So that is our mechanism appreciation, the drafting in Inish, and then the stunt cards in Tidal Blade. And that takes us to our next segment, the Board Game Geek randomizer. Oh man, are you ready for this, Dan?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Guesses today?
I'm going to go for something ranks in the top 4,000.
Top 4,000. I'm going to do you one more, and I'm going to say that this game is going to be ranked in the top 100. That's extremely low, but I'm doing it. Are you ready? Random game. Here we go. Come on. Oh, nope, you got it. Oh, no, we didn't. Oh, you said top 4,000?
I did.
Well done, Dan. All right, mine was a bit narrow, more narrow scope, but we have today Tank Duel, Enemy in the Crosshairs. Card-based tank-to-tank warfare on the Eastern Front in the early, mid-1940s. All right, so first off, have you ever heard of this game?
I haven't, no, but I see it's published by GMT, so
okay.
Got a reputable company.
It has a following, decent rating, 7.7, plays 1 to 8, a kind of mid-weight game, 12 and up, plays about 1 to 3 hours. I imagine that increases with the number of players. Interesting. So right off the bat, let's look at the description here. It's got, the day dawns like any other. The sun makes its way low over the misty horizon. Flavor text. Lots of flavor text.
Lots of flavor text.
All right, card-based game, Eastern Front. Convey the claustrophobia and urgency the tank crews experience. That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Simple action system. Keeps the action moving at a rapid pace. Issue commands, battle cards, trying to get victory points by claiming objectives and eliminating their opponent's tanks and crew. Cool. Okay, so I'm actually a big fan of games like this where they are skirmish games, but they're objective driven. It's a reason that I really like Super Fantasy Brawl. So I think that this is kind of cool, actually. I like systems where it's not just all about killing the opponent, where you have some other strategic choices to play into. Have you played any games like this?
No, none spring to mind. I like this player board, though. That's quite cool. It looks like you got to kind of maintain your tank, etc. It actually sounds quite cool. I mean, maybe the length sounds a bit long, but maybe that's just for those higher player counts. But I'd actually be willing to give this one a try.
I actually agree with you. This one looks pretty cool. I love the way it's clean. I like that there are clear victory points here. It looks like you have a number of points that you get for each dude that you take out. You've got weapon systems. You have a VP track that's on your board, which is nice. So it's easy to track things. This is cool. I like it. You have little tokens for extra hits, and it looks like you actually have different units that go into the tanks. That's fun. Yeah. I like that small character customization. More like team management. Would that be what it's called?
Yeah, why not?
We're making up mechanism names here. Watch out. Have you ever played any of these GMT war style games before?
I've not played any of the war ones, no. But this one, I think this one actually, out of all of them, because I know there's loads of them, this one actually sounds like the kind of weight that I would be willing to try. I mean, is it under a 3.0 in weight?
Yeah, it's a 2.5 weight.
Yeah, I mean, and it still looks like visually there's quite a lot of things to weigh up, a lot of things to do, as you said, getting your right crew, I suppose keeping everything, well, I suppose upgrading your weapons, and I think it actually sounds really good, yeah.
Yeah, I'm quite impressed. Some of the GMT games that I've played that are in the war style, obviously I played Twilight Struggle. That one's pretty cool. Yeah. I like the different event system. Another one that I've played is Successors, 3rd edition. This is the Battle for Alexander's Empire. That one has you playing kind of like managing Alexander's, empire. Go figure. And that one I actually had a really negative experience with. The two people that I were playing had played it multiple times and just generally unhelpful in the game. Right. There was like a condition for winning that I was trying to attempt, and I just got no assistance on what to do, essentially. And it felt more of they were more focused on winning the game as opposed to having a good time, if that makes sense. And with a giant war style game with lots of small thematic rules, which most of them do have, it was kind of disheartening. It was just they'd kind of soured me on that experience where it's just all right, well, unfortunately, this is just the kind of gamings that we're playing with. I got it. So yeah, didn't really do it for me there. But once again, it may have just been the people that we played this with. But yeah, that was that one. So that was Successors. But this game, Tank Duel, that's fun. This is neat. This is fun. I think that this would be a fun game to give a try.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't sound as stuffy as a lot of these other games. It sounds like it's got just a bit more dive into it and just kill each other with tanks. So yeah, I'd give it a go.
Yeah, agreed. Nice. That's a refreshing random game this week. I like it. It's better than an Uno clone or a homemade shut the box.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best one we've had yet.
I don't know. Pokemon card game's pretty good, man.
Oh, okay.
I can't tell a lie. I think Pokemon card game is fine. I think there's too much downtime in that game personally. But who knows? Maybe a World of Tanks or Tank Duel is better. All right, that moves us on to our next section. This is why is this in your collection? Now, this can be a positive thing, a negative thing, or something in between. Why do you have this game? Is it good? Is it bad? Or am I just here to grill you today, Dan? But first off, what are you here today to do? What do you want to know about?
Okay, so this is actually, I want to more get your thoughts on it because this is actually a game that's in my collection. However, I don't play it as this game anymore because I think there's a better version of it. So the game I'm talking about is Mysterium. So Mysterium, I won't go too much into detail with it, but it's basically a Dixit variation. I personally will always play Mysterium as Dixit now. And what are your thoughts on that?
So Mysterium, in comparison to Dixit, or just Mysterium as a whole?
So, why is it in your collection, first of all, I suppose?
Okay. I think that Mysterium is, first off, a great vibe. This is a game where you play as paranormal investigators communing with the dead, and you do this through vision cards. One player gets to play as that dead ghost, though, and as they play, they're able to give clues, and I think that's super interesting, super fun, and I love the choice there. But the biggest reason that this is in the collection when other replacements have come up, like Mysterium Park is a more accessible version of Mysterium. Obscurio introduces a trader mechanic. But this one does exactly what it sets out to be. It is a cooperative, large cinematic experience as opposed to the shorter Mysterium Park or the Hidden Trader where there's some competition in Obscurio. And I think that this does a great job with keeping and retaining the cooperative version. The other reason that I really like Mysterium over those other games, I do like the other games. Like, I'm not going to discredit them. I really like Obscurio. I really like Mysterium Park. The setup in Mysterium Park is so good. But the way that Mysterium does it is it's going to have you all playing all times. And I really like that. So in Mysterium, you have different levels that you're going through. The first level, you're looking for the person. Second level, the location. Third level, the murder weapon. Or if you're playing with the expansion, the motive of the crime. But the best part about this is if one person figures out their person, they immediately move on to the location. And they can start guessing the location. In Mysterium Park and these other styles of games, you wait for everybody else to finish. So in this game, you're actually always playing, and I think that's a big boon to it. I think that's awesome, keeping everybody engaged always, and it adds something interesting to the player giving the clues, because maybe they have a really good clue for the person that's looking for the location, but they need to make sure that the people in the back, the people focusing on the person, are able to get their clues so they can get forward, because they only win if everybody gets to the end. So do you forego this amazing clue for somebody else to help somebody that's further behind come closer? So I really like that choice, that decision, and I love the cooperation in this one. And I love that there's no downtime. You're always playing. So that's why I like Mysterium. I think it does a great job with that. What are your thoughts?
So I do agree. And I think, as you said, I think the vibe of it is nice. If you want a real chilled out one where no one's going to be taxed in the decisions, they haven't got to rack their brains over doing mathematics in their head or anything, it's just go with the flow. I think it's good. However, I think the crux of the gameplay is basically Dixit. So I think you can get the whole experience of Mysterium in a 15-minute game of Dixit. So that's just my personal take on it. I prefer the artwork and stuff of Mysterium. I think it's got a great production, wonderful artwork. That real haunted spookiness comes through, but not in a pretentious way. And I think it's a nice game, but I think it's a bit long for what it is. And I think a lot of the almost casing of the game is a bit unnecessary, particularly the win condition at the end. I think it's a bit faffy. Whereas Dixit is just smashing it, constant that fun part of the game over and over again. So again, I can see why people like it. I do like it, but I think there's nothing Dixit doesn't do better than Mysterium. I mean, have you played Dixit or?
Oh yes, it's definitely in our library. This is one
Yeah.
that I really like. I use this a lot in teaching, as well as it gets played. Like this game is, people will pull it out, people will play it. Like you said, it's snappy, it's fast. It takes that fun part, that clue-giving section of Mysterium, and puts it into that competitive manner. And I think that's really cool. But I think that this definitely, takes it and does the opposite, puts it in a cooperative manner and does it extremely well. So I think that both have their sides. I think it just depends on the style of game you're looking for personally. But I think they both have a space in the library, which is why they're in the library still.
No, fair enough. It's just interesting to get your thoughts on it.
Yeah, no worries. Now this game, I want to know, because, so for my question for you, why is this in your collection? This is really funny because it's a really niche reason that I want to know why it's in your collection. So Capstone Games has been releasing a lot of cool looking hits recently. So they released the Maracaibo expansion, Boon Lake is coming out. I think it's called Gearworks or Steamworks, something like that. The one with all the neat looking gears and stuff. Lots of these pre-orders have hit, but sometimes they're like maybe $2 off of free shipping, $5 off of free shipping. And I'm looking to see if this game is worth it, so that next time this happens, I can add this to the cart to make up for the shipping loss to get a discount on the game. And this is going to be New York Zoo. I want to know if New York Zoo is worth getting, so that way I can add it to my cart and not have to pay the shipping.
Okay, yeah, I think New York Zoo is worth getting. I think it's a lovely game. It's obviously a polyomino style game, as you are going around this rondel and picking up tiles and putting them on your map, which is your zoo. So you're getting all these different enclosures. But when you go to certain spots, you can kind of breed your animals, and they kind of spread. And you get bonuses once you fill these tiles of the animals to get these additional ones to fill your map up. And I know there's a lot of games of this style out there, where you're trying to put these tiles together to try and fill your board up. But I like the way this one has a race element to it. So there's literally no scoring other than the fact you want to be the first to fill your board up. And I don't think any other of these games have that race factor to them. And a game that I often play, me and my girlfriend's favorite game is Patchwork, that we play together. We played it to death, really. And this one has a lot of Patchwork vibe to it, except, again, that race element and the fact that you can play it with more than 2 players. So I like it. I don't think it's reinventing the wheel. It's a very small mechanism to differentiate itself in relation to that animal, reproduction system, but it looks nice. It's just a pleasant game. I mean, probably from this description, you can completely understand and imagine how this actually plays in reality.
I do want to know how specifically why does it matter that you're multiplying the animals?
So I said, when you get these animals, you put them on the tiles themselves. So you actually put them on the tiles. But once you're multiplying these animals, if you have a pair of them, you'll put another one on that same tile. And as soon as that tile's full of animals, you get to take a tile from this kind of common supply, and which is like a bonus tile placement, which of course is going to help you fill your board quicker. So you've got to weigh that up. Whether is it going to be more efficient to me for my animals to breed in order to get one of these bigger tiles, or just to keep plodding along and putting more tiles onto my board.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes more sense. Cool.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, if you like these style of games, this is another nice one. I think at least in Europe, it's relatively affordable. And it's one of those games that I did think you're not going to like. It's just nice. It's a nice, fun experience you can get played in half an hour or so.
The components are adorable. The theming is fun. I think Okay. How is the downtime on this? So I know that sometimes when you play these multiplayer polyomino games, people can take a while because they're trying to in their head, trying to fit every piece. And some people have to grab them and physically put them on the board and be like, ooh, is this going to fit? Like, what do you think about this?
Yeah, this game does have that, but I wouldn't say to the point where it was noticeable, any more than any other game's downtime. So, yeah, I mean, and I think yeah, because if people go to certain spots, all the animals will reproduce. So even if someone goes to a spot, then yours is going to reproduce as well. So you're kind of slightly invested in other people's turns more than you would be if that wasn't the case. So proportionate. I would say proportionate downtime.
Okay, perfect. Well, thanks so much, Dan. So that was our "Why is this in your collection?" More of just a general thoughts, but mine was definitely a selfish reason this time. So we'll see. I don't know if you've convinced me yet on this one. So we'll see if a pre-order comes up, and if I need the extra dollars, I'll put it in there.
Yeah,
excellent. So this moves us into our next section. We are in A to Z. A to Z. A to Z here, we are going to be talking about games that fall under specific letters. And this week, our letter is H. We're going to be talking about a light game and then a heavy game and then our thoughts on those. So first, what do we got? Dan, what's our first game we're talking about?
Okay, so the light game I'm going to talk about for H is Hanamikoji. Hanamikoji might be, in fact, I think it is the most played game in my collection. So I think when this came out, the year it came out, or maybe the subsequent year, I played this game relentlessly, mostly with my mum. We played this again and again and again and again because this one really hooked me. And I didn't know too much about it when I bought this one, but by God, when I got to the table, this is such a clever and delicate, elegant game. That's quite, I think it's a bit of a masterpiece, to be honest. I will say with more plays of this one, I've kind of explored everything there is, and it's slipped slightly because the novelty's worn off a bit. I've not got anything else to discover with it, but it's still my collection because it's that good. But yeah, this is a tug of war style game, as you are taking one of 4 actions, and the order in which you take these actions is massively important because it basically leaves how many cards are going to be in your hand for the future turns. And you are basically either getting a bunch of your cards in your hand and splitting them in kind of I believe it's you split in 2 pairs, and your opponent can take one pair, you take the other pair and put them on your side of the table. And the other one is it putting him in a pair of 3, and I can't remember exactly what it is.
Yeah, so it's there's 4 different actions. There's the show your opponent 3, they take 1, make 2 stacks of 2, they take 1, and then the other one is just you keep a card.
Save a card, and the other one is to delete a card from the game, yeah. But those, mechanically so simple, but every decision in this game is crucial. If you make one mistake, that could be the 1 point that you needed to win the round. And I love how delicately balanced this game is. Certainly one of the best 2-player games out there. I know there's going to be a new edition this year, actually, which will be interesting to see. But as far as I think perfect designs go, this is, for what it does, this is perfect. It is so good, and one of those games that you really do have to play for yourself to understand how good it is and how clever it is. Because when I first played this game and I just read the rules, you don't really get a feel for what the gameplay is from the rules. And I was thinking, well, why wouldn't I just do this? Why wouldn't I just do this? It's all just luck. Just pick something. That is not the case at all. Every decision is crucial, and it's one of the most tense games as well, as you are leaving these opportunities for your opponents and you're begging them not to take the one that you've left them. And you got to just keep that poker face and hope they don't choose the card you put out there. But for an I split you choose tug of war style game, Hanamikoji is as good as it gets.
I totally agree. I think this game's a masterpiece. I think it's so good. If you didn't put this on your H, I would have, because I think it's that good. People need to play this game, and as you described, it has wonderful, tense decisions, but only 4 of them. And I think that's so cool that they've taken this awesome experience and just refined it so well. I love this game. I think that this is so neat. Totally agree with everything you said. I'm not going to belabor the point. Excellent pick. Awesome. Cool. Now my game, something completely different. This game is one that I've played a lot this last couple of weeks. We're back to school. Kids are having a good time. And this game in particular is one that gets played a lot. We also played this during our moving. We recently moved in a new place. And this was a fun game that we could take outside for some just exciting, all over the place action. This is the classic game, Happy Salmon. Happy Salmon here is a hilarious game of matching cards and doing gestures to dump your hand of cards. It's completely a novelty, but it's a fun one. And this is one that it's a game that makes you sweat because you're moving so fast. You're trying your best to get rid of these cards. the whole goal is you'll have a stack of cards. You got to match them with somebody else at the table, and they've got these different actions on them. 4 actions: a high five, a pound, a happy salmon, or a switcheroo where you switch spots with the person. Gets you up, gets you going. Crazy fun, but quick fun. This takes about 2 minutes. Hilarious. Great game. I think that this game it's perfect for these conventions. It's perfect for kids with a lot of energy. It's perfect for adults that want to expend a lot of energy. It is high-paced fun, and that's what it is. That's great. I think there's a space for games like this, and Happy Salmon does a great job. You played this?
I haven't played it. No, I've been willing to play it though, because it's funny you say that. You said there's something here that everybody can enjoy, and I've heard like content creators who who make family kids games love it, and I've also heard like people who are into the most advanced games, they love it as well, which is quite interesting. So yeah, there's got to be something about it, and I suppose simple, silly fun, always going to guarantee a laugh.
Exactly. And that's really it to the game, right? It's just a fun time. Yeah, and that's my age. That's Happy Salmon. It's a great one. I really like that game.
Cool.
What else you got, Dan? What's your heavy, distinguished game?
My heavier one I'm going to talk about on this episode, and I will say H's were quite hard to get games for. I didn't have too many choices, but I'm glad there was a really good one. So I got a classic Euro game here. This is Hansa Teutonica. Hansa Teutonica, I know it's regarded as one of the evergreen Euros, one of the classics out there. Andreas Stedding design. This is a route building, engine building style game that I think is very elegant. So I've kind of used that word a lot, but I don't think it's overused for a game like Hansa Teutonica. This is one where you're trying to place these tokens onto these different routes, and once you complete these routes, you either get to potentially put one of your cubes in these areas, which is kind of like an area control style thing for points at the end, or if you go to certain other spots as well, like the ones in the corners, you can really ramp up your power to do things, such as being able to put more cubes onto the board, or when you take cubes from your supply, you take a lot more, or you can start to go into new areas that other people can't go into. And I think this is one of the greatest examples of clean, pure engine building without any kind of text or anything. It's all just there in front of you. You know what everything does. And while there's only I think it's like 4 or 5 different things you're improving on, they're all really powerful and you want them all. And I think it's wonderful. Do you want to invest in the points? Do you want to invest in actually taking more actions on your turn? Do you want to get into those spots before other people can do? All while trying to create all these big network and connect things together to get the most points. And this is a game that I really didn't pull the pin on for quite a while. I think I always struggled. I think nobody's going to want to play this with me. It looks so dry. I mean, I like my dry games, but this one is probably one of the most boring looking boards, at least to most people. I think it looks great, but a lot of people think it looks awful. But the gameplay really has a bit of a disposition with the actual look, I think, because it's really fun and it's breezy. Turns are lightning quick in this game. There's like no AP considering, or downtime considering the depth here. But I think this is a classic. That's Hansa Teutonica.
I think it's a great pick, Dan. I like this one. I think you said it perfectly. This game is one of the cleanest engine builders around, and I love that all of the different choices are viable. I love that you can take so many different paths. You don't need the expansions if you don't want them to have a great time with it. And I think that's really cool. I love how clean of a design, and I love how easy it is to get invested, and it's very easy to understand. And I think it does a great job with this. So I think it's a great pick. Like you said, this is a classic Euro game. That's awesome.
Yeah. Some great interaction here as well between the players. Some people say it's really nasty, but I wouldn't say it's not too bad, because when you place something on the board and people can kick you off, but you get rewarded for that by going to the different routes next to it, which is a real nice, fresh approach. Well, I know it's quite an old game now, but it feels different in terms of the way you interact with all the other players.
I agree. And when you're kicking somebody off, that hurts you as well, because it takes more cubes to do that. So if you really are doing that, then you better have a good reason for it, right? Whereas you could, allocate your resources more wisely somewhere else.
Yeah. And sometimes you just shove a cube just to block a path because you know you're going to get kicked off and benefit from it. Very clever.
I totally agree. Great choice. All right, my heavier game this week is one that I think is extremely underrated. This is Heroes of Tenefyr. Heroes of Tenefyr is a very interesting deck building cooperative game that does deck building in a very unique way. Now, the way it works is you are going from dungeon to dungeon, and you're going to have a party of fantasy characters. A very generic theme, but the dungeons here are going to have these stacks of cards, and in each of the dungeons, you are going to be going through each monster. Each card is a monster. And every time you defeat a monster, you're going to put that card, flip it around, and it becomes a card that you get to put in your deck. Whoever deals the killing blow adds the monster to the deck. So it's kind of interesting to talk with your teammates and say, ooh, who's going to get this guy? Whose deck should we increase their abilities? And I really like that system where your upgrades are the cards themselves. There's no market. There's nothing like that. It's there. The monsters in the market. I think that's really neat. So you're trying to plow through these dungeons to upgrade your abilities. But the deck building system here, I think, is so interesting. The way it works, on your turn, you'll have a deck of cards, and it'll be filled with these 1s, 0s, as well as a special ability for your character, and then all of the monsters that you've killed along the way. Now, on your turn, you reveal 3 cards, and you decide, do I keep this hand? Or do I dump it and draw a new hand of 3 cards? And you'll do that as much as you want. So you'll do it until you get a hand that you're comfortable with, or maybe a hand that you have to use. And what do I mean by that? When you actually fight, the dungeon is maybe 4 or 5 cards, and you have to decide, do I stick with this hand? Because if you run out of cards, you're out of the dungeon. You can no longer help with any of the other fights. So you have to decide, do I stick with this poor hand and hope that my next person can carry the slack, or do I search for something better because they need my help? I love that choice. I love that decision here. And you have a set number of these cards, and you're going to know what's in your deck as you play, because you're going to be adding stuff and you'll kind of track it. And so you can weigh and risk your options. Oh, it's so well done. I love that push your luck mechanism. I love that it's on you. And I love that there's actual cooperation. One of the coolest things is when you take the cards, some of the cards will give you better abilities based on your class. So if I'm a bard and I take a axe, it's not going to do anything for me. But if I give it to the barbarian, they can actually use that axe for something better, which I think is cool. So some of the cards will allow you to give cards in your deck to another. You can cull cards, but culling cards and giving stuff might not be the best thing, because now your deck's smaller, so you can't participate in the dungeons as long. So it's really interesting, because sometimes having a deck full of cards is good, because that just means you can participate more. So interesting, so fascinating. I really like Heroes of Tenefyr.
Cool. Yeah, I didn't know much about this game other than the title, but that mechanism sounds pretty cool. Yeah, I like that. It's kind of like push your luck, but with bigger stakes, and with a cooperative element as well. Yeah, really sounds really simple, but clever. Yeah, I like it.
I agree. It's extremely simple but clever. This game reminds me a lot of games like Yu-Gi-Oh! Or competitive card games, where you are searching through your deck a lot for things, you're comfortable with your deck, and you are looking for specific combos, but you get to craft those combos and you get to become familiar with those combos. So it's not something that somebody's just handing you a deck of cards and like, all the combos are there, good luck figuring them out. You get to build them, and I think that's really satisfying. So I really like that system in this game. Oh, it's really good. So that's Heroes of Tenefyr. So that's our A to Z here. That's H. Join us next week for I over on Dan's channel. Go figure. All right. So that goes to our next section. This is going to be our question and our, just our audience responses. So let's go to last week. What was our question last week, Dan?
Okay, so last week we asked how our audiences feel about the amount of new board games being released year upon year. Are there too many games being released? Is the amount right? Are the games? Should there be more games released, or are the amount of games about right, but they should be spread more evenly throughout the year? Because normally the games are very bottom heavy in terms of the everything's released at once. I know, Mackenzie, you said you're happy with the amount of games out there. There's going to be something for everybody, but you would love it if it was spread more evenly. I took the camp that it was. I would like to see fewer games, because there's just too much to fight through, and especially when I like so many different types of games as well. It's just such a burden, and so it really is a lot of work. But I suppose it's a first world. We mentioned this being a first world problem. It's a silly complaint, because we should only be enjoying it, and we're not under any obligation to buy every game, are we? So, but anyway, we've obviously put this question to the audience, and quite strongly the audience agreed that there were too many games being released each year. with a massive 65% of the vote amongst 4 different categories. So the right amount was 13%. More games being released was the lowest option with 9%, and Mackenzie's option there with being the right amount but spread more evenly was 13%.
Yep, I don't really have much to add on this one. So I think that, yes, there are a lot of releases. And as you said, we don't have to cover them all. But just with the nature of like acquisition disorders that humans just have, we want to play and try them all. And everything looks cool. And with like the ramped up production and everything that exists and just how good games are now, you want to try everything, right? Like it's just gonna happen. It's just very natural to want to be involved.
Yeah. Okay. So shall we ask the new question then?
Let's do it.
Do you want to do it, Mackenzie, or do you want me to do it?
Sure, I can introduce. So our new question for this one is a number-based question this time. So empirical data, we could figure this out. So our question this week is: how many games a week? How many games a month? How many games a month do you buy? Oh my gosh, how many games a week? I hope it's. Oh man, how many games a month do you buy? Now, right off the bat, Dan, how many would you say?
Ooh, to be honest. This is not a good question to ask me recently, because within the last few months, I've really ramped up the amount of games that I've been buying, way more than usual. I think a lot of it is because on like kind of Facebook groups, etc., people putting stuff on there that I really want. I think I've got to grab this now, and it's just seems to be a lot of that recently. I probably leaning towards I'd guess about 8 to 10 games maybe.
Per month?
Yeah, give or take. It varies.
Now, in this number, do you include games that are like being delivered from pre-orders and stuff? Does that count? Or does the pre-order, the moment you click the pre-order button, does that count as buying the game?
I would consider it when it gets delivered. Yeah, that's how I would, because that's when you physically get the game, isn't it, onto your land and ready to be played.
And then what do you think about like component upgrades? Do those count as buying games?
No, I wouldn't say so. No.
Okay. So we do every month on our channel, we do a things that entered the library, kind of like an update for not just me, because it helps me with inventory, but also some people are just interested. What's in the library? What do you have? What can you try? And all of these games, a lot of the times, we got a lot of lists. It's a big list on these. Like just looking at this month, I've prepped our list for this next video. We have 15 new things in the library. So we have about 5 upgrades, and one of those is that giant Rhino hero, and then we have 10 games that just entered. Yep, 10 games, and there's more on their way. I know we just got some deliveries by Asmodee, so we'll see what those are. I think it's more Arkham Horror, potentially Marvel Champions content. I think it's Arkham Horror, though. But we have lots of things coming in. But I think the big thing, though, that hits us is the pre-orders. We have about 10 pre-orders for this month. This month was a big one. We have lots of stuff from Capstone Games, lots of... Oh, that's not true. I ended up not backing Edge of Darkness, so only 9 pre-orders, but lots of times we'll get like things in Pledge Managers will come out, and we'll have to jump on that. We'll have to jump on some of the newest Kickstarters. Luckily, this month was pretty light on Kickstarters, so that was really nice. But some months, like back in May, we talked about this. That one was awful. Like April and May and June are terrible for Kickstarter pre-orders. Oh my gosh! And then October is also real bad because of Essen. Oh man. Yeah. So. Yeah. I would say that probably every month we get about 12 new games to the library. But every month we also push out, I would say, around 4. Because not all games are winners. And then a lot of times we'll discover games that we're playing that maybe get replaced, or that we're like, why do we even have this anymore? So unfortunately, that's not healthy, right? Because we're bringing in 2 times as many games that are coming in, and we only have so much room. So it can be a problem, but like you said, very much a first world problem. Oh boy. All right. We have Jonathan Kokoski here. He says 1 or 2, currently going through Lord of the Rings LCG, so multiple adventure packs or deluxe too. That's all one game though, right, Jonathan? Doesn't count. You're not bringing in new games. You have you're the best of all of us. Fantastic. But great choice. Nice choice with Lord of the Rings LCG. I know, Dan, you're a big fan of that, yeah?
Yeah, it's a really, really good game. Yeah, enjoyed that one.
Totally agree. All right. So if you would like to let us know, once again, this will be another question that's on my community tab. So let me know, how many games are you acquiring each month? I'd love to hear what you think. I'm curious to know what should I put for the numbers on this? Like 1 to 2, and then like 3 to 5, 6 to 9, and then too many to count.
We'll work it out.
We'll work it out. But oh man, this is one that's going to scale weirdly. But I'm excited. I think it'll be funny to see like spending habits and things like that. But I think that we're pre-ordering 10 games and getting 10 games in. I think that's quite a bit. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately it's unsustainable, really, isn't it? I mean, where are you going to put? I'm in the complete same boat as you are, so I'm not criticizing. But yeah, you got to be on the board to get things out as quickly as you're getting them in. Otherwise, you're just going to be a crazy hoarder with a bunch of hundreds and hundreds of games in your house.
Yep, but luckily we're able to sell things pretty quickly. I literally put we're having a video about this coming out soon. So if you stayed this far, awesome. This is Edge of Darkness and Adventure Tactics Domian's Tower just went on our sell list, and they sold in like a day, which was awesome.
Yeah.
So especially with that new Kickstarter up, it was really easy to push those through, which is nice because people are interested in it. Mm-hmm. All right, so that brings us to our very last thing before we close. What are you looking forward to play? What games are you looking to get to the table, Dan?
Okay, so yeah, I've got quite a lot to get through. Hopefully going to get around to something like Spirit Island before the next episode.
Awesome.
Maybe Gloomhaven as well. And I've managed to actually pick up a bunch of older Istari games, which I bought as a job lot. So some of these games are really hard to get hold of. And so might have a little dig into those and see if there's anything in there worth exploring. But yeah, that's I think I'm going to try and prioritize a Spirit Island.
Awesome. Were the Istari games, were those all marketplace acquisitions?
Yes, they were, yeah.
Awesome. So cool. It's kind of funny that you mentioned that, where you're like searching through marketplace and you're finding these games that you've wanted to try for a while. In our library, like I feel like we have everything we really need. That's kind of my mindset. Like there's nothing that I'm like looking for. Whenever I see like sales on anything, I'm just like, we don't need any of this. We have everything. There's no reason to get this. So I'm always constantly looking at like pre-orders and things like that. Like those are the big things that I look at to make sure that we have these potentially new good titles that may go out of print in the future. So super massive FOMO, but I don't feel like there's any backlog titles that I'm really looking for. Honestly, the biggest things are the ones that you recommend, or when I do content collaboration, those are when these new titles will get introduced. But a lot of the times other people will have them and I'll be able to try them there and kind of weigh those options. So. Yeah,
I mean, I really want to get to that point where I feel comfortable not having to look backwards and can only look forwards. But I thought I was there, but it just keeps on going. It's like a never-ending well of games that I've missed out on.
Yep. Yeah, I can definitely understand that feeling. When people suggest games, that's how I feel. I'm like, oh my gosh, how did I not know about this? But to be fair, I don't really look in the past. I'm not constantly digging up past lists or anything like that. Yeah, nothing too crazy. But the games that I'm looking forward to playing, one game that I've been playing a lot recently is Glenmore 2 Chronicles, actually. It's sitting on the back of your shelf there. So fun, so good. The Highland Games expansion just came out, which introduces an Automa faction, so that way you can play on your own and try out the different Chronicles. But that multiplayer game is so fun. It's so quick, so easy, so fun, so breezy. Yeah. It is so good. I was really impressed. So I'm going to talk more about that tomorrow on crowdfunding. But yeah, I really like that game. And then the next game that I'm getting played tomorrow, hopefully, is Arena the Contest. It is a 4v4 arena combat-based game. So there's a co-op mode, and then there's a multiplayer mode. I'm playing the multiplayer competitive mode tomorrow. You take these 4 characters of different like types. Maybe one's a range character, one's a melee, one's a healer, support, and you mash them up together. Lots of different characters to pick from, and then you go head-to-head to just smash the opponent's characters. So it looks really fun, and apparently it's really, really good. And I was really impressed. And we just did the organizing video for it on the channel, and the models in it are so cool. There's a painted version, and the dragons, you can play dragon versus dragon combat. This is like, a kid playing with their toys. It's so fun. You can, I'll be the blue dragon, you be the red dragon. Like, it's so fun. I think this looks amazing, and I imagine we'll play like maybe 6 games of it in a row or something, just to really get a good feel of it. I'm thrilled. This looks so fun. I can't wait to play that competitive version. It looks really good. So I'm excited.
Look forward to seeing your content on that one then.
I'm pumped. So those are the 2 that I just want to play more Glenmore, though, because like it's really funny. Like, yeah, let's go smash dragons, but let's also build this cool Scottish landscape, because I just want to dive through all the chronicles. There's so much content for that game. I love it. I love the chronicle system. So cool.
Yeah, yep. It's definitely my favorite tile placement game. I think it's amazing.
Perfect. Oh yeah, I'm having a blast with it. I suck at it. Like, that's a game I actually suck at, and I was so mad because man. Yeah, I'm garbage at Glenmore, which is really funny. I can't evaluate the tiles appropriately. Give me a card game, I can evaluate that stuff real quickly, but tiles.
Weird scoring system as well, isn't it? Because you score in relation to the other players. Yeah,
I love it, and I've been playing a lot of that 2-player actually, and it's hard because that one person you have to keep in mind that everything that you don't do, they're going to score for it. It's just it hurts. I love it. It's such a good game. I like that one.
Very clever. Very, very good game.
Yes. And that's our show. That is Corporate Cardboard, our 8th episode. Thank you for joining us this morning. If you're watching later, thank you for tuning in. I know that these can be a little bit long, but they're chock full of information. I'll put some timestamps below so that you can skip around to the things that you like. But I really appreciate you coming in, joining us. And Dan, thank you so much for being here this morning. I really appreciate it.
Always a pleasure. I always enjoy doing these. So, always looking forward to the next one.
Absolutely. And make sure you are subscribed to Dan's channel. He puts out amazing content, great reviews, very thoughtful top 10 lists, just overall good board game stuff. It's awesome. He's very knowledgeable. Go subscribe. We're going to be there next week. Not next week. Maybe next week. Who knows? Our schedules are kind of funky right now. So next time we'll be over on Dan's channel for episode 9. And we'll be remember, answer those questions in our community tab, and we'll get those reported for the next episode. Anything else to add, Dan?
No, that's everything. We've got it covered. I think good episode.
Excellent. Same here. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. Side game strong.
Goodbye.
See ya.